I've made the mistake of buying the wrong camera equipment so many times over the past decade. So don't be like me, save your money, and instead buy once, only cry once. So let's take a look at 10 pieces of camera gear I regret buying and what you should get instead. The first one is this shoulder rig from SmallRig. And this is the one with an offset built into it. And I'm actually missing one of the handles. I couldn't even find it because I haven't used it in years. This was the first shoulder rig I ever bought. I can't remember the exact price, but I think it was around maybe 150 bucks for all the parts. And there are a lot of issues with it. One, the offset, so it ends up putting the camera right in front of your face, which just really doesn't work. You don't want it right directly in front of your face like this. Another thing is the weight is way too far out, so it ends up being super heavy in front and it's not counterbalanced at all towards the back. Another problem was that these handles were way too short, so my hands were up really high instead of being down much lower here, so it's much more ergonomic. You can hear this little piece is completely loose, and I've tightened it up a bunch of times, but it would come loose. So these grips can end up moving on you during a shot and completely ruin it with those jitters. So once I realized this wasn't a really good quality buy, I went through a handful of other shoulder rigs. I'm not gonna show you all of them, but here's another one I did. This one is from Camtree, and these handles were much nicer, better gripping, and much more adjustable, and they were longer. But I had some issues with this one as well. There was no good way to mount a follow focus on here, and I ended up going through a handful of different iterations for shoulder rigs until I finally landed on what I think is the best one on the market right now, especially for the price. This is the TILTA lightweight shoulder rig. It comes with this really nice carrying case as well that has spots for all the different accessories you might use. So let's pull this thing out. And I've actually done a full review on this already, but I wanted to show you very quickly how it solves pretty much all the problems that I had with my original SmallRig shoulder rig. These arms stretch down much further, so it's easier to grip. The camera sits back much further, so it's not going to be really front heavy. It's also really easy to throw a follow focus on here. So this is the TILTA side focus grip that I use, and they're actually releasing a brand new one soon for the Nano 2, and I'm really excited to buy that and test it out. And the arm is extendable, so I can drop this down even just a little bit further here. And the really great thing about it is this shoulder rig is only $339 US at the time of filming. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but I don't have the money to buy the nicer option, and I know exactly what you mean. I feel the same way all the time. So what ends up happening is we settle for that cheaper option, but then it doesn't perform as well as we had hoped, or it ends up breaking, and then you're back on Amazon or B&H searching for a replacement, and you end up spending way more than you originally needed to. The second item that I regret buying is cheap light stands like this one. You've all seen these before. A lot of times they even come with some lighting kits. And this one I actually picked up at Goodwill, so someone else dropped this off thinking that it was completely worthless, and it was actually worth $7.49. I've still got the sticker on there. They're just really cheap, and this one hasn't broken on me yet, but oftentimes they do. I've had a lot of them break. These little knobs, these parts at the bottom become loose or break. I've had these little spigots on the top come loose and break off. And to be honest, I still have a few of these light stands floating around the studio, and they get used from time to time for small things, but who knows, this might end up back at Goodwill for the next videographer. So here's what I use instead. The first thing I bought was a 3-pack of these Neewer C stands, and they've done the job for a long time. I think I've had these for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, something like that. But the legs on them, the turtle base, has started to get a little bit loose and wonky, and some of the grip heads have broken. I've had to replace them. So even this, I went a little bit cheap on these, buying the newer ones. They've done the job, but I think I've started to outgrow them. So here's what I'm using now, and it's just a lot better. This is a Impact C stand, and the quality is a lot beefier and better, and I actually really like this black finish. The turtle base on this one is just a lot more solid, and it actually has this cool quick release on it that you can pull up, and then it all just collapses into place like that and locks, and I really like that. So then when you get on set, pull on it, and it all locks into place. It makes setting up a C-stand so much faster. Now, there are of course better options, but again, they get into that price point like a Matthews that is just a little out of range for me. There are a few ways to avoid buying the wrong camera gear. One, you could just live without it. Don't get FOMO, that fear of missing out, or gear acquisition syndrome, whatever you want to call it. Just live without it until you can save up enough money to buy it when you actually need it. The second option is to rent the item anytime you actually need it for a shoot. But be careful doing this one because depending on how long you rent it for or how many times you rent it, you might end up getting close to the purchase cost of buying it anyways. But then again, just renting it once, you might realize that you don't even like it or need it in your workflow. The third option, and I really don't recommend this, but you could buy it on a credit card. And I know Dave Ramsey is off somewhere in a corner crying just hearing me say this, but there are a lot of credit cards that offer 0% interest for a year. So if you need something for a shoot and you know that you're gonna be able to pay it off in the next 12 months, like absolutely know that you're going to, then I guess you could buy it if you need to. I mean, I've done it in the past where I needed to buy the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, but I didn't have all the money up front to buy it, but I knew I needed it on a shoot that was actually gonna cover the cost of it. I just hadn't been paid yet. So I bought the camera, did the shoot, and once I got paid, I paid it all off. If you're not careful, you can really rack up that credit card debt. So honestly, I'd say avoid doing it. Now, the third piece of camera gear that I regret buying is a V-mount plate. And this one is actually from Falcon. It's called the DP500. And I bought this many years ago. And I think it was around 150 bucks when I bought it. And it was one of the more affordable options, but it isn't super adjustable. There's only one hinge, so you can just basically tilt it this way or that way. That's it. And what's funny is looking at this again is I realized that it doesn't even have a D-tap port on it. So what I ended up buying instead was this one from TILTA, and this was definitely an upgrade. It's a lot thinner, you can see, than the Falcon one, so it's keeping the weight down, and it actually has a D-tap port on it, so if you have accessories that need that, which a lot of them do, I could actually plug in there, and then there are a couple other ports. And this one is much more adjustable. As you can see, you can really articulate exactly how the V-mount battery sits. So this is still a really great option that I love and will use from time to time. But even now, it's not necessarily a thing that I use all the time. What I'm using now is actually just this teeny tiny little V-mount adapter. It's actually just this little piece, and I have it mounted on this little hinge. So what it does is it slides into the back of my 15mm rod setup, and then I mount the V-mount battery directly onto it. There we go, and that's it. So you can see how compact and lightweight this is. Now the reason I'm able to do this is because V-mount batteries have really changed over the years. This one has a D-tap port built directly into it, and then it also has a bunch of ports across the top. And if I end up needing more than one D-tap, what I end up doing is actually just using this little D-tap splitter, so it gives me 4 ports, and I just plug it into the side here, and then I have really all the D-taps that I could possibly need. Another thing worth mentioning is that you don't always have to buy new. You can find so much quality equipment in good condition used from places like Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, eBay, and just so many other websites. So what I do all the time is look for it used first and try to find something in good condition. And something else I always keep an eye out for is those open box items. A lot of times on Amazon, they have those warehouse deals and you can just find something a little bit cheaper because someone else returned it. Item number 4 are these Samson Lavaliers that I bought years ago when I started out. I don't even have them anymore, but I'll try and pull up a picture of them if I can. And I just tried to go cheap, get some lavaliers. Like, any of them are good, right? But they had interference, they were crackling, they had terrible range. So what I bought instead to replace them is this Rode Link Filmmakers Kit, and I'm actually wearing it right now to record this video. I've been using these for about 8 years now, and they're still going strong. I absolutely love them. And the great thing about audio and microphones is that you don't have to replace this equipment nearly as frequently as you do as some other camera gear because you're always wanting to upgrade it. They can last a really long time, so it's worth investing in some good microphones. But I think even these have been replaced by the Rode Wireless Go 2. I'll leave a couple links down below to pretty much everything that I've talked about in this video. Item number 5 that I should have just waited until I could afford something better was a Neewer external monitor that was 7 inches. I don't even have it anymore, but I'll put a picture of it up here. And the great thing about this though was that I could get my focus a little bit better and I could get my exposure better having that larger external monitor. What I ended up replacing that with is the Ninja 5, and I absolutely love this monitor. It's so much brighter at 800 nits brightness, and not only is it a monitor, but it's also an external recorder. So I can record in full ProRes using these SSDs on the back. So there were just so many better options about this, much more solid build and much sharper. And to be honest, there are dozens of great external monitors out there right now. You don't have to get an Atomos. I also love my SmallHD monitors. These are really my two favorite brands in the field right now. And you don't have to get them either, but I will say it's worth investing in a good external monitor because you're going to be using it just as much as you use your camera. Item number 6 that I regret buying perhaps the most were these very cheap softbox lights with fluorescent light bulbs in them. And I don't even have them anymore. They were so cheap that they all ended up breaking within a few months, and I literally tossed them in the trash. What I ended up getting instead were a handful of LED panels, and this was definitely an upgrade over the fluorescent light bulbs, and I love them because they're fully dimmable. But this one is from Neewer, and there's a trend going on here. I realized that I bought like a lot of Neewer gear that was pretty affordable, but all pretty bad, and maybe the quality's gone up since now I don't buy them anymore, so I'm not knocking on Neewer, but maybe their stuff has gotten better. This little adapter right here that goes on has broken off on a couple of the other ones, and it's pretty loose on here. These little knobs don't tighten the best and then stay in the place that I want them to. I actually threw away 3 other ones. This is the only surviving one. They all ended up breaking. So what I'm using now is a whole host of different lights. I have a bunch of them on right now lighting me, but I'll show you one LED panel that I am using all the time, and this is from Falcon. They make a whole bunch of different ones, but this is one of their 1x1 panels. And what I love about this one is that it is bi-color. So of course you can get that full adjustable Kelvin, and it's full RGB. So you can change it to any color that you need. And again, there are so many great options for LED lights out there now. Skip the really cheap entry-level stuff and invest in some better lighting, because again, you're gonna use it for years and years and years to come. It's not something you have to upgrade all the time. Item number 7 that I probably should have skipped are cheap lenses. Now, this is kind of a touchy topic because lenses can just range so greatly in price, anywhere from maybe $200 to $5,000 and up from there. So your bearing on what an expensive lens is versus what a cheap lens is could vary greatly. But what I'll say is one of the first lenses that I bought was a nifty 50 from Canon, and I think it was $100 or $150. I'm not exactly sure. To be honest, it was good to start off with, and it got me that really nice shallow depth of field that I wanted to play with. And so I think there is a spot where you can use those cheaper lenses for a while, but to be honest, you're gonna wanna invest in some great glass, because again, glass is gonna follow you from camera body to camera body, and you don't have to upgrade it forever. So right here, I have the Rokinon Cine DS lenses, and this is a kit of them. I didn't actually buy them all at once. I actually bought each of them individually and kind of built it out over the years because I didn't have money to buy the full kit up front. Now, the Rokinon Cine DS lenses are definitely not the most top-end lenses, but at the time, they were some of the best and most affordable manual focus lenses that you could buy, ranging from about $300 to $600. So I've had these for about 8-9 years now, and what I do is actually adapt them to just whatever camera body I need. So these are all Canon EF lenses, but because it's using Canon EF, they're easy to adapt and put on something like my Sony FX3. I put them on Fujifilm. I put them on all the Blackmagic cameras because it's just really easy to adapt them. So I definitely recommend that if you're going to invest in glass, get a mount that you can adapt to a lot of different camera bodies. And really there are 2 great mounts for that, Canon EF and PL mount. So whichever you want to invest in, I definitely recommend going with that because you can always adapt them to the camera body. Now, the only place that adapting lenses doesn't work the best is if you're not using manual focus lenses and you want to use autofocus. Adapters oftentimes don't work that fast or that accurate as the native lenses. So if you use a lot of autofocus and you rely on that, I would say it's a good idea to go with the native lenses. Item number 8 that I don't totally regret buying is my camera bag. So I got this camera bag when I very first started out 10 years ago. And so it's been pretty beat to death. A lot of the Velcro doesn't work super great anymore, but this is from Case Logic. And to be honest, it did do the job, but it was a pretty just cheap, affordable camera bag. and it worked well for me, but it didn't really have all the pockets and things that I needed. And so I haven't used this in a really long time. I had to go find it down in the garage. It's super dusty. I don't know if you can tell. So the bag that I've replaced it with now is this Thule roll top camera bag. And I absolutely love this thing. I've been using it for about 6 years now, and it is still going really strong. All these clips are super solid and nothing has worn out on it. And I've taken this all over the country. And I really like it because it has a quick access to your camera or lenses that you can just pull in and out of the side right here really quickly. And then there's just a ton of pockets all over it. I can actually put a lot of things on the top here. So I could put clothes up here. I could put other larger pieces of camera equipment. I think they've updated the bag since, but you can check that out. I'll make sure to link it. Item number 9 that I absolutely regret buying is this magic arm, again from Neewer. It is just junk. No matter how much you tighten it, it's gonna end up coming loose or spinning off on you. And you may have seen a short that I made about magic arms. I really don't like them very much, but this one for sure is trash. I don't know why I haven't thrown it away. I really should. And what I'm using now instead is this TILTA mini articulating arm. And this thing for its size is an absolute beast. I can tighten this thing down and it really will stay in place wherever I put it. Another great thing about it is that it has these little airy locating pins, so it keeps it from spinning off on you. So if you like using magic arms, I definitely go with something like this. Item number 10 that I regret buying is a cheap camera slider. I don't even have it anymore, and it didn't have any counterweights or gears or anything to make it actually run smoothly. So you just had to use your hands as smoothly as possible to get a good shot. So I ended up replacing that with the eye-footed shark slider, which I still love and think is a great slider. Still highly recommend it. But even still, I ended up replacing that one with the Syrp Magic Carpet Pro. And the main reason I did that is because this is a much more heavy duty slider, so I could put much larger camera rigs on it like the Sony FX6. So that's why I ended up going with this. And it actually has a flywheel built into the carriage, so when you're going down the track, it's super smooth. And there are these little tracks on the inside as well that makes the whole thing operate really smoothly. There are a ton of great options out there now for sliders, so you don't have to get the Syrp or the eye footage. Just look for something with a flywheel or some gears so it operates a lot smoother. I know everyone's situation is different and you may not be able to afford that better option right out of the gate, but if you can just be patient and save up your money, you can buy once and cry once.